The Super Bowl is finally here. Philadelphia just got some great news regarding the flu that was floating around the locker room right in time for kickoff, plus why Jalen Hurts will finally silence the haters who got extra motivation just days before the actual game, and YKC has zero shot at stopping Saquon Barkley. I'm Thomas M. This is the Thomas M. Show. Well, 2 weeks of endless media nonsense, overblown news reports, and ridiculous takes on both the Buds and Chiefs have finally come to an end. All is left now is the actual game decide who wins Super Bowl 59, but of course not before two final hilarious moments from the week leading up to the Super Bowl, starting with ESPN's Get Up panel the past 2 days, all picking the Chiefs on February 6th, and then flipping around and all picking the Eagles on February 7th. Pretty funny here, play both sides that way, you can't be wrong is definitely the national media game, or how about the equally quote-unquote funny NFL Honors Award show on Friday night? And first off, congrats to Saquon Barkley for rightfully winning the NFL Offensive Player of the Year award for his absolutely meteoric and historic season, tearing through every single defense he's played. Well deserved, and obviously the right choice. I'd like to thank my teammates and coaches. You can't be great without the greatness of others, one of my favorite quotes, and you definitely can't accomplish awards like this without the big boys up front. Sadly, though, that was the last award NFL voters actually got right, because the rest of the Eagles got completely snubbed. For instance, Vic Fangio finished third in the Assistant Coaching of Year voting following his defensive masterclass, taking the Birds' 29th ranked total defense in 2023 to number 1 for the entire NFL in 2024, receiving 3 less votes than the Lions'. Aaron Glenn, whose defense was 5 points worse than Philadelphia, is pretty unreal. Or how about Nick Sirianni finishing outside the top 5 in Coach of the Year voting behind Kevin O'Connell, Dan Campbell, Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Dan Quinn. Moral of the story, the voters for this award didn't really watch the coaching, or I guess Philadelphia at all. Not to be outdone, how about Zach Bond finishing 5th in Defensive Player of the Year voting behind names like Trey Hendrickson? For some reason, did anybody actually watch Zach Bond play this year? The guy was absolutely one of the best, if not the best defensive player in football. And then of course finally Quan Mitchell finished 28 votes behind Jared Verse for Defensive Rookie of the Year, despite Verse not registering a single sack in the final 8 regular season games for the LA Rams. But good news is those are just awards in the end, virtually meaningless, because what actually matters is the hardware you get for winning on Sunday. You can get Defensive Player of the Year, that's great, but winning a Super Bowl and actually being snubbed for the previous awards might be the best thing to happen to Philadelphia players all weekend long. Also, speaking of Sunday, join me and Josh for our Super Bowl live stream. We'll start 1 hour before the kickoff. We're going to have a ton of fun, watch the game together, and of course I'll give away the signed Cooper helmet, Super Bowl t-shirt, and super jersey to somebody who of course is a subscriber, has liked one of the videos this week and dropped a comment. Go do that down below on today's video as well. Now, it's been pretty wild that the biggest news of the entire week before Super Bowl, at least for the Birds, has been centered around the flu, as I've chronicled on my channel all week long, starting first with Jalen Carter, who had the flu, then fellow defensive Mignan known Smith, which was then followed by a brand new report on Friday morning that Lane Johnson has some sort of illness, and apparently even Quan Mitchell reportedly has laryngitis. Thankfully, though, despite all the common cold hysteria, Eagles insider Derek Gunn quieted all the fears on Friday morning by officially tweeting that all players dealing with illnesses on the Eagles are feeling a lot better as of today, and the Birds' final injury report from Friday evening correlated all of this, as the quote-unquote sick players not only practiced but obviously will play on Sunday, and that includes the non-ic players as well who had other injury concerns, including Lon Dickerson's knee, Cam Jurgen in his back, and yes, BG, you see him there with his tricep. All practiced, all will play, and are expected to have a big impact, which by the way, same for the Chiefs. Both sides very healthy, zero issues for KC on their final injury report of the week. They look very, very healthy and shouldn't have any problems. Also, for the past few months I've been partnering with channel sponsor Bombas to remote their socks and clothing items, and at this point they're basically the only things I wear. Bombas spent years designing the most comfortable and durable socks in the market, and their new athletic shop is here to support you in any workout. All their socks are designed with sweat-wicking yarns and strategic cushioning to keep you comfortable during any activity. We're talking socks for running here, socks for golf, hiking, compression, ski, snowboard. They have a ton of different options for your athletic needs. My most recent Bombas haul was their active flyless boxer briefs, which I wear every single day at the gym, and I also got a pair of ski socks because I don't own ski socks. These are incredibly comfortable. I wore these at the NFC Championship game. They kept my feet extremely warm. I'm going to try them out skiing here next month. Bombas has also given away millions of socks to places like homeless shelters, rehab centers, and to medical service professionals, all part of their one purchase equals donation promise. In fact, Bombas makes the top 3 most requested clothing items at homeless shelters across the nation, and right now all new customers can get 20% off your first order of Bombas by going to bombas.com. Thomas Ahmad, use the promo code Thomas at checkout, trust me you're going to love Bombas as much I do. Oh, you might like this report from John Clark of the Birds' second to last practice, saying it was their longest and most intense practice of the Super Bowl week, 2 hours, with Nick Sirianni adding he thought everyone looked very locked in and ready to go. Now when it comes to the actual game, everybody has broken down this matchup from every angle possible over the past 2 weeks personally, though I think it's going to come down to one true matchup: Steve SP's defense versus Saquon Barkley. The reality is if the Chiefs can stop Squan, they're probably going to win. Doesn't matter how good or bad Mahomes is going to be or how many turnovers happen. If Saquon Barkley gets insanely bottled up, it will take a lot for the Birds to overcome that. Of course, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts in the passing game can't throw a victory. Clearly they can, and almost did 2 years ago, but breaking it down and just the most simplest terms, no nonsense, stopping Saquon wins it for the Chiefs, and everyone of the Birds, including Lon Johnson, definitely knows that there are some tail signs, but I feel like they do a good job really disguising it. Yeah, I mean they do everything and they make it look a vanilla, they make it all look the same, but for us if there's any change in alignments or anything that can help, but they're really good tacklers. I mean they don't do a good job of I like their keys, they're quick, so if you're not right on your points or any of that, there's guys getting tackled in the backfield, so that's really what it does. They do a good job of moving on a chain sometimes and making it difficult for the center, but I'll be honest, I have very little faith in the Chiefs actually being able to do that, because stopping Saquon Barkley, as we've seen the entire year, is a lot easier said than done. I mean, how many times have we heard this? Well, they haven't played X defense, for instance, the Ravens' #1 run defense heading into that game in Baltimore, and they couldn't stop Saquon, or even the Commanders. They played Saquon twice, no way he goes at them for a third time they're going to know to stop him, and obviously the Commanders and every other team that played Saquon Barkley had zero ability to slow down 2-6. The one area of concern I have about the Chiefs is run defense. Here they are against Cleveland the last 6 weeks, it wasn't good. They sink down right here. All this is a play that the Eagles are going to run. This is going to be just like it's being run right here. All Ford goes to the left right here of Dorian Thompson-Robinson. There's going to be a mesh point right here, and Kansas City is sitting there waiting for whether Ford gets it or whether Robinson keeps it. All right, and they give it to Ford, and he outruns the perimeter right there and picks up 10 yards. Okay, now here's the same play that Houston runs. Watch what Kansas City does. They go to their big linebackers. Tranquil Bolton Chanel. All right, here comes a similar play, comes counter Trey. Now do you keep it or do you hand it off to Mixon? They off to Mixon here, and you go like you get Saquon into this alley. KY bar the door. All right, I mean Bolton can't get him, nobody's going to get Saquon if he gets to that spot. Now you watch the Steelers. Tranquil right here, it could be a run blitz, maybe you'll see this Sunday. Tranquil runs through, but this is not a good run fit. I mean you got Reed outside, and you got Tranquil here, and there's nobody here, and Warren rips it for 22, and I've said this multiple times week, but the Chiefs never playing against Saquon Barkley, let alone Squan Barkley behind the Eagles' current offensive line, is going to give the Birds a massive advantage that the media has completely overlooked. I think it does help that they never went against me either, but the challenge is, man, as you watch film can see why they're so good. You can see why they're 2-time defending champs and why the defense is rank high every year. We know it's going to be a challenge as Spags, you never know with him. No, he brings all type of defenses, so definitely got to lock in and really focus on our details, but at the end of the day, I think always going to come down adjustments. That's a thing that Songi will slow Saquon Barkley, and actually slowing him down are two different things. Sang will slow down Saquon Barkley while also somehow bottling up Jalen Hurts' running ability, or how about A.J. Brown's big play catch ability, or Smitty and Goddard's history of carving up the Chiefs. It just seems too big for any defense to handle, let alone the great Steve Magel's defense. Every game is a big game, so we got another opportunity to do it, and we work very hard for this moment, and to be the last man standing, and so we just want to put our best foot forward. We got another opportunity to get better at practice today and just take advantage of it and keep stacking. Now, I know in the back of every Eagle fan's mind the other big worry that they have is the worry they can't really talk about without getting braided on Twitter, and that is the current referee situation for the Kansas City Chiefs. And let me just say this first off, don't let KC fans cheat you. The Chiefs have had a penalty advantage just based on raw data alone from the 2024 season, and yes, the Chiefs in their last 11 playoff games, they have had fewer penalties than their opponents in 10 of those games. And of course, the cumulative win probability from added penalties the last 4 years definitely seems to favor one team above the others. My simple proposition for the whole Chief ref thing is very simple: make it too big to rig, and by I mean make sure the ending of Super 57 doesn't happen to Philadelphia this time, because of course the controversial holding penalty on James Bradbury clearly cost the Eagles the game and gave a first down that basically won it for the Chiefs. Is that the only reason Chiefs won that game? No, but you got to make sure that the Birds score enough early in this game to maintain double Digit lead well in the fourth quarter that way a holding penalty or pass interference call or Patrick Mahomes baiting an eagle into a late hit out of bounds will not matter. I'm a whole referee NFL's rig for the Chiefs conspiracy theorist. All I'm saying is if Philadelphia can get off to a hot start, if they can maintain a lead, get a fourth quarter having double-digit lead, then there's no way possible for Mahomes to bait the ref and no throwing a penalty flag when he goes out of bounds. Has a holding call pass. Interference over the top, none of that will matter, and Philadelphia can win no matter what in the end, though I'm not that worried about the ref. I'm not that worried at all. Can the Eagles lose this football game? Absolutely. The Chiefs are a generational team. They're the best team we've seen since the Newland Patriot dynasty. They're fantastic in every single way, but the Birds are just better on paper. Philadelphia matches up better. They have better players, have better position groups, and they should win this football game. That's why I picked them during my live stream with Josh Davis earlier this week to win 31-21, and I stand behind that. Philadelphia is going to win by double digits, and I think Eagle fans are going to love their result. It's the Chiefs, and Andy Reid having 2 weeks is nothing to go ahead and write home about. Steve Spagnuolo has locked in on something that they're going to try figure out to stop Saquon Barkley now, whether it's successful or not. We've seen what 18-19 other teams at this point be unsuccessful play people twice. Though some more like 15 other teams, but still it's going to be interesting. I think the early parts of this football game are going to tell us a lot. Right, how well is the Eagles defense prepared to slow down Patrick Mahomes? Can they get to Patrick Mahomes and actually sack him? Because if they do, the blueprint is there, right? We talk about the Chiefs winning all these Super Bowls in the course of Patrick Mahomes' career. They have lost one back in 2021. Mahomes was a lot younger, but that was Brady in the Bucs. And they got to Mahomes a ton, did not allow anyone to run the football from the Chiefs side, and they ran football with Lard Fournette for 155 yards, and so that's the blueprint. Run Saquon, get over 100 yards for him, get Patrick Mahomes on the ground, and Philadelphia should win pretty comfortably and have a nice lead in the fourth quarter. That way no shenanigans that people like to talk about, whether true or not, can actually come true. So I think it is interesting, though Josh Chiefs have not played Saquon Barkley like Chiefs have not played against Saquon Barkley in his professional career. Now, there might be one or two players who's come over in free agency. I don't know the exact number that have played against Saquon, but it's virtually no one on that roster has seen what Saquon is capable, let alone Saquon Barkley behind this offensive line. Might big concern for the Commanders, and the Rams in postseason was okay. They've seen Saquon before. How are they going to adjust? The second and third time that they play him didn't turn out to matter, but right. Chiefs haven't seen him, and so I think it's going to be a massive upside when you actually play against SP. It's completely different than just game planning against him for the past 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a level of difference when you see him in person, let alone just on the football field. But just see him in person, it's kind of like, okay, well, this dude's a little bit different than what you say advertised on TV, but like more so, and you take that combined with the fact that the Chiefs' running game, that I think is a bigger point than some people might realize, because it's like, well, hey, just shut down Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. For one, that's easier said than done, but also it doesn't necessarily come down to that. I think it's more so make them one-dimensional. Just make sure that running game cannot offset a little bit. If they're going to throw 40 times in the game, then you live with that. You just accept the fact that, say, you cannot run the football on us. And especially if the Eagles stay in nickel, like that's the big thing for me, because the Eagles love to play nickel, obviously. So Cooper to Gene, the big mismatch there, but Chiefs like to use a ton of 2 tight end personnel, and so when you have that sometimes mismatch, go well, can they run the football better on it? But so far we've seen, and the Chiefs maybe hopefully get proven wrong on this, but you can't really run when Cooper to Gene here, cause he's a hybrid type of linebacker. You move him into the box, he can help start run when he's in pass protection or coverage. Maybe it's against Travis Kelce, maybe it's against another receiver, but the versatility that he has is a night and day difference maker. So again, I think it's you make them one-dimensional there, and that's what the pass rush compend is. Back the field is going to be night and day better. How many times you get questions of like, hey, what about the field? What about it's not going to be grass? So that's a benefit in itself, like this squad. We played the highlight to start the show here of Dallas guard and the big catch that he had in New Orleans. It's a little bit ironic that probably the best performance, at least in terms of like yards and points, from Vic Fangio's defense was against New Orleans in the same dome. So on turf with this squad, good footing, I'll take my chances a lot better than Arizona 2 years ago. Well, in Philadelphia is 5-0, I think, this season inside domes on synthetic turf, and it's like, okay, well, this really is what a Super Bowl supposed to be. 2 years ago, the turf wasn't great for either side. That's always the excuse Chiefs fans make, and that's totally fair. You go back and watch the Chris Jones film from that Super Bowl, and he did virtually nothing, whether it was the Eagle O-line blocking him well, or he too like ass and wreck, and the rest of the guys couldn't get off the football and actually go get the quarterback. You want as neutral a playing field as humanly possible, and Philadelphia is going to get that this time around, and they're defensive. Johnson to be kind of the main guy. Do you want Bond to run around there on him? Do you let Oren Burks and Bond double team. Do they throw a lot of double team to Travis Kelce? Does Cooper Dine get into the mix? That's really the matchup, right? Because as you look at the Chiefs offense, Pacho is a very good runner, Pacho, not 130-yard carry sort of guy, and against the Eagle defensive line it's probably not going to be a massive PCO game unless he breaks a 70-yard and then gets an extra 40-5 the rest of the way. Worthy's a problem, but you wonder how they're going to utilize Worthy and get him in the open space. Right, I think Worthy is probably the other big factor. DeAndre Hopkins is very much just a possession receiver. He's not going to go up and get a football where he beats Quinn and Mitchell on a go route. It really is Kelce, it's Kelce, and then Mahomes running around, and if they can find a way to stop those two things, that's probably all she wrote. But that's the problem, is that teams they've done a good job slowing down Mahomes and Kelce at times, but they seem to lose by 3 points, 1.5 points, 7 points. They're all one score games, and their low scoring against the Chiefs offense so slow him down. But if the Eagles offense on other side can just get enough points to pull ahead, it's a WP, and it feels like it could be a wrap earlier than we think. All of the Eagle fans are extremely confident. I've not talked to an Eagle fan who's like, yeah, I'm kind of scared, I think we might lose by 10. I think there's no Eagle fan out there saying we would lose by double digits. If we lose, it's by 1.2.3 point, and if we win, it's by 10 plus. Yep, I've heard the exact same thing, because you just look at this team and there is the Andy Reid factor, there is the Patrick Mahomes, you give some extra time and prep, but sure, like we were talking about earlier, that at all the positional breakdowns, Mahomes is great, absolutely no one's doubting that. Andy Reid is great, no one's doubting that, but there's not a dominant receiver go through. Just said DeAndre Hopkins, you're not really a Juju Smith. Sure, there's Travis Kelce, yes, but it's kind of like, okay, he's not the same of what he once was, can beat you if you let him get open, but we have a lot of guys that are playmakers, and I think the speed plays a huge factor too with the turf, as we mentioned. That naturally speeds up teams, but I think that when you're talking about a bend but don't break and limit the yardage, the only thing that really helps amplify Kansas City and they're able to take advantage is if there's a lot of missed tackles. But we haven't seen too many of that. We saw a little bit in the Green Bay game. Early you're kind of going like, maybe you got to clean this up, and then since they've been rock solid, throughout the playoffs, most of regular season they were, so it's like they play with speed as it is. If they make tackles, I just don't know how, and then again it goes to the offensive side of the football. But I think that this team has continued to gain momentum. What Jalen did against Washington, I know it was Washington, it's not Kansas City, but still he gains the confidence. They're two of the throwing football, the offensive play calling you saw from Kel Moore. I get it, feel like that. There's part of me that I'm like, yeah, 24-20 was earlier in this week, and that's where I was leaning for the score. But more that we go on, the more that I look into it, I'm like, I just don't know, feel like it could be a 10-0 spread or more. It just feels that way. We'll see. Turnovers are going to be a big factor early on. You saw in the Green Bay Packer game, for instance, where Philadelphia was really a better team all game, but Dillon throws that early pick. They have a very slow start and get behind the sticks, and you're like, okay, can they speed things up? And obviously they've done that multiple times, but if you can play clean football and do really what they did the entire first half minus the Jalen fumble in Super Bowl 57, they went right down the field on that opening drive, converted a couple of third downs, and eventually punched it in at the goal line. You do exact same thing, put that defense out there, and let these guys go eat. It's just so hard to underestimate or realize just how good Jalen Carter can be in this football game. Jill Carter can really be the difference maker, and giving that internal up the gut pressure on Patrick Mahomes early and often, and hopefully make him run for his life, because we see Mahomes do that and make a lot of very clutch plays, but make him run for his life and then get him on the ground, push him out of bounds, make it throw incomplete passes. It's going to be fun. I'm not nervous yet, which is weird. I thought would be nervous by now. I think the 2 weeks have kind of drug on for so long that I'm sure Sunday I'll be nervous. But right now, it just feels like a typical week score prediction, puts you on the spot as always. But Wednesday, so I'll give you a split second as I just make sure to get the total last up-to-date total on a Wednesday, which again, it'll change. Do they get to 30? That's the question, and I've asked that every single time in the postseason. Yeah, it's 1.5. Then favor the total is 49, so 9 Chiefs minus 1.5. Yeah, I think they get to 30. Think they, what, I ask this question every single time. Will they get to 30 versus the Commanders? What about the Rams? Yeah, they will get to 30. I'm going it's either 3,121 or 3,124. Do I want double digits or not? I'll go 3,121. How about that? I want a double digit win 3.